right, exciting intro for sure. Hey, this is Matt McCormick, sales manager, inkjet sales manager for Imaging Spectrum. We want to welcome again another series about color management with the solvent printers with Epson and some other devices like scanners and some other devices as well. And this is kind of a, trying to get y'all a good overview of necessary steps that it takes to go from file to print when using these printers, and maybe some tips and tricks that will work. So just trying to get a good understanding of what we go through, and some of the things that we know, and kind of pass that knowledge to y'all. And maybe if you don't have one of these solvent printers, been always been wanting to maybe get into that, maybe you got more signage needs, or maybe something on that with your customer base that always curious about. It is a kind of a tutorial as well on these printers and what they can do. So we hope that y'all learn something from this, get something out of it. Definitely, ask questions. You can ask questions during it, or definitely, or maybe save them to the end, and we're happy to answer, as best we can. But you heard Zach. Zach is my lead tech over here. He's very knowledgeable about these printers and the software and everything that the steps need to go to get good color management with these printers. So I want to introduce him, let him take it from here, and we can go through this, and hopefully y'all get something out of it.
Awesome. Thanks, Matt. Hey, and guys, I want to let you know that I do want to introduce Morgan Lynn here, who is the regional manager for Epson, and then Mike Moon, who is another Epson super guru when it comes to tech stuff. So we definitely got some good brains here today to pick from. So hopefully, if you do have any questions that pop up, like Matt said, we'll take time at the very end to answer those, but feel free to throw them out as needed. So without further ado, I want to just jump right into it, guys. So obviously today we're talking about S-series printers. So that's the solvent, the Eco-Solvents from Epson. And we're really focused on color management. So if you guys tuned into some of the last ones we had, I just want to do a quick overview, kind of a recap from the last two. So initially we started talking about the basics of solvent. We later on talked about some of the different media options that were out there. And so now I want to kind of bring it all home and let you guys know how easy it is to actually create an incredibly high quality print. Even with some of these profiles that have already been built out there, taking those steps and measures into our own hands, we can really enhance the output of these machines. So I'm going to do a little bit of science here at the beginning, so hopefully you don't glaze over too much, but really we're going to talk about kind of human perception of color. Obviously, we're going to talk about why manage colors. It's something that I really even need to worry about. We'll talk about some of the devices that it takes to actually get those proper measurements. And then, of course, at the very end, I want to kind of show you a quick little 3 to 5 minute video on creating a quick profile from scratch. So let's just jump right in. First of you, for those of you who aren't familiar, I just want to I'm not going to spend too much time on this since we kind of did a previous webinar on it, which I should go let you guys know. If you did miss some of those, you can definitely visit us at imagingspectrum.com/training, and we'll have all of our webinars up there. So first off, what we're going to be profiling today is the S4600. So that's the CMYK printer from Epson. It is their entry level when it comes to their 64-inch Eco-Solvent printers. And I think you guys will be pretty impressed to see, even with the CMYK, especially after we do our own profiling, how rich and vivid we can get these images to look. I do want to mention that there is the S6600 and the S8600, and as Ls as well. So you can get these in either cartridge systems or bulk systems. So if you're a high volume shop, I can definitely strongly encourage you to go with the bulk system, as you're going to have a long-term cost savings there versus going the cartridge route. And then last but not least, for those of you who are doing maybe heat transfers, or if you're doing some different materials out there, there are some print and cut bundles for these as well that are bundled with the brand new Graphtec FC9000, which is definitely a robust, it's a beast of a cutter. So some very impressive things there. So I'm just going to real briefly touch on this. Like I said, we did this in a previous webinar. So what we're dealing with here is additive color today. So we got our CMYKs here. You might be familiar with the RGB, which is basically what you'd be seeing from your computer screen. So the reason I bring these up is because we need to understand, just a very basic level, how we're going to convert these RGB values into these CMYK values. So We're going to go over some of that today. We're going to talk about some of the parameters that can be adjusted to get the utmost quality out of your printers. And then, of course, we're going to be talking about gamut, especially when it comes to these profiles that we're building. So hopefully, just real quick, you can see here kind of that middle blue circle, if you will, is our CMYK color gamut. Now, not to get too deep into it, a circle is not the complete accurate representation of how the eye does see, but for our intents and purposes here today, I think this hopefully gives you guys a good idea of what what we can hit with these machines here. So first up, I kind of want to start with something that I thought was quite interesting. Hopefully you kind of see here too. And really, I kind of call this understanding color. I kind of call it the perception. So as us humans, as some of you might know, human to human is to err. So the thing about this is if you kind of look at these balls, if you're like most individuals, you see three distinct colors in these. Now, the truth of the matter is if we really get up to it, if we actually measured it with like a spectrophotometer, you'll see each one of these balls is the exact same. The reason I'm bringing this up is because I want to show you that, the human eye definitely has a few fallacies, I suppose, is how I could put that. As you age, you get more of a yellow tint. I mean, some of you might be familiar with the cataract side of things there. Different genders, genetics make a huge difference. It's kind of interesting. Even something small as having a cup of coffee or being in a good versus a bad mood can actually kind of change our perception of color. So the reason I'm bringing this up is because at the end of the day, I can say, hey, give me brick red, give me, barn red, whatever it might be. But, for each one of us, that's a slightly different thing. And depending on the day of the week, it could be slightly different too. So that being said, what I'm kind of trying to drive home here is having as much of a consistent condition as possible, which is why we talk about these lights, kind of a standard D50, which would be 5,000 Kelvin, or D65, which would be 6,500 Kelvin. For our prints, we're mostly going to be working with the D50. So if you really want to kind of take it to the next level and have almost like a viewing booth, that's a great thing as well. So just to kind of further drive home the perception, I want you to kind of see A, B. And these might be some things you guys have seen before, but if you're going to really kind of be in the average here, most people are going to say A is the darker square there. But you can see when we actually connect those two, they are the exact same. So again, just another reason why we can only trust our eyes so much. And don't get me wrong, I know there's some guys out there with some impeccable color vision, don't get me wrong, but at the end of the day, we need a scientific approach that can be a standard across the board. So here's a light box. This is a couple things I want to talk about now that we're jumping from perception into conditions. So conditions might be printer maintenance. What ink set are you using? What media batch is this? Is this the third-party media you got from Joe down the street? Has this been tested? What are your shop conditions? Do you have consistent lighting? Are you climate controlled? It even comes down to such as, how's your monitor? Is it a calibrated monitor? Do you have your brightness maxed out? Are you working against yourself is really what I'm kind of trying to drive home here. And I know at the end of the day, you're kind of like, well, gosh, Zach, there's so many different things that can go wrong here. And really the reason I bring this up is because those spectrophotometers are going to take all of these out of the equation and give us, like I said, a scientific, accurate measurement of what we're dealing with here when it comes to color. So for those of you who don't know much about a spectrophotometer, the one that we're going to be using here today is the XRite. It's the I1 Pro 2. They also have an I1 Pro 3 out. So from what I've talked to them, that's more catered towards if you're working with fabrics or things of that nature. The I1 Pro 2 is a fantastic device. And as you can see, it's basically a fully functional kind of out-of-the-box unit here. It does come with its own software. I will tell you this, though. Today, we're going to be focused on Onyx, the Onyx side of things. So within Onyx, there's actually a full robust system for color profiling and everything that you would need. So without having to spend the additional, $2 grand to jump up to an enhanced software, especially if you're dealing with colors that are outside of the CMYK gamut, maybe some spot colors like oranges and reds, we can all do that within the Onyx software. So like I said here, no more guessing, no more asking about, is it barn, is it brick red? Some people just say red and you're kind of like, well, good luck on that one. Same thing here, we're kind of taking out the human error. And then last but not least, it does integrate perfectly with the software packages we're using. So I'm just going to focus on a few examples, and I'm sure they make sense, but reasons. Why do we need that consistency across the board? I know for some of you it's obvious, but let's just say we're doing a multiple fleet vehicles. Maybe I'm doing, 3, 4 vehicles this week, and then next month I'm doing those same vehicles. Well, if my consistency does not remain the same, let's just say I'm not doing my proper maintenance on my printers, or let's say I changed my media type or something of that nature, we do need to know for sure that we're able to hit those consistent colors across the board, because obviously we don't want those returned to us, because again, that just ends up being more time and money that we really don't want to waste there. Another popular example, we have people who do very high-end fine art recreation. So at the end of the day, and a lot of these artists are very particular, understandably, about their color choices. So we need to make absolute sure we can make them happy and hit the colors that they need to, so that they can sell it to the clients. Again, Pantone, which we will talk about the S80 a little bit later. I know we're focusing on the CMYK S40 today, but let's just say I have Coca-Cola at my door, I might have Home Depot or somebody of that nature. We need to make sure that we can hit those colors completely dead on, so we don't have to worry about anything getting sent back to us. So let's kind of jump into the actual profiling here. I just want to show you really quick, this is kind of what the device that we're using here today is going to look like. What you see here on the bottom portion is a white swatch, so that way it can recalibrate itself, so it's not just kind of going willy-nilly. It does have a ground to start working from. Real quick here, I just want to show you kind of the Onyx Media Manager, which is going to be the software. Basically, it's in Onyx that we're working with today. This is kind of their hierarchy, if you will, their kind of pyramid of best practices. So from creating a new media, mode, passes, ink restrictions, linearization, ink limiting, and then finally we'll have that color profile built in. So I want to start right here, and this is basically the start page of the Media Manager. So today I'm working with Avery Dennison. It's a high-end cast vinyl, very great for car wraps and things of the like. It's called the MPI1105. Now I'll tell you this, Epson has a really great thing called the Epson Edge Dashboard they've created. Now, a lot of profiles have been created already for us. I will tell you this, though, some of those are a little bit older, and some chemistry could have changed since then. So what we're really doing here is making this profile perfect for our shop, which I think is a great thing for anyone who's really doing the proper signage and really just diving deep into the utmost quality that they can offer for the customer. So what I want to show you here is just our basics. So again, we're going to be using the CMYK process. For this particular one, we can change our sizing. We can have spot color set up. We're dealing with the CMYK, so we're not going to worry about that today. What I'm going to do is actually create a custom. Now, I should mention this, that for each pass and each configuration, we have to create a separate profile for it. So even though I'm using the MPI1105, I might need a profile for the 6 pass. I'll need a profile for 8 pass if I'm running it, maybe a 4 pass if I want something a little quicker. So each one of those has to be a separate, obviously within that same folder in the same hierarchy, a separate media mode there, profile. So from here, we can do our first calibration print. And I just want to show you guys, this is the actual screen itself. I'm going to show you a video of everything in action here at the end, but just so you can get your get your feet wet here. So a calibration swatch will be printed. We will take that spectrophotometer that we had before, and we will read that back and forth. So reading those swatches, and you'll see later here, it'll know the expected color versus the result color. And what it's going to do is kind of find that medium in between and make sure that we can hit those particular colors that we're expecting to from the get-go. Now, I will say one thing on the ink limiting, and again, I will show you guys a video of this later. The ink limiting is a really important factor, and for multiple reasons. There is a point of diminishing returns, and we really don't need to have a full max color laid down there. Some people think, well, I want more saturated, more dense color. That doesn't always mean adding more. Really, we kind of find that sweet spot. We set that as needed, and that's going to be A, cost savings to us, and B, it's going to actually give us more accurate colors across the board there. Of course, arguably one of the more important things here as well is that final profile. So what we'll do is we'll take those swatches, and there's a couple configurations from a quick down and dirty 900 swatches to 4,000 plus swatches. what we're going to do is we're going to read those colors. Right here where it says no light inks, so let's just say we're working with an S80 and we have a light magenta, a light cyan. We can let the machine and the software know that, and it says, okay, now I see we have a little bit more to work with than just those CMYKs, and we can start to introduce those light colors in as well. Last but not least, Onyx, this is an Onyx specific thing. That's what they call their AccuBoost. So what they say is, and there's two reasons. If you do maybe a quick down and dirty profile, but you want Onyx to just really try to nail home the accuracy there, you can run a whole nother swatch. I believe it's about another 2,000 swatches, and that just is an additional boost, as they call it. So from there, we would really have our profile set for us and ready to go. Now, what I strongly recommend, and another thing I love about Onyx, is they have some pretty high quality test images built in. So what we can do is we can start with our baseline, have a second print, and kind of judge from there. Whether you're doing maybe portraits might be one thing, separate if you're doing like Pantone matches, where we'll take that spectrophotometer and hit those exact Pantone colors. And then last but not least, if we are dealing with, and this is a little bit down the road, but if we're dealing with something like a metallic silver or maybe a white ink, we can set those up as spot colors and kind of have those as their own entities there. So what I want to tell you guys here is that over time, and like I said, a lot of these you will find within the Epson Edge dashboard, but you know, I always encourage someone to go the extra step there and really kind of stand above maybe some of the other sign shops out there by profiling your own. And as you can see here, over time, you can really build a vast and diverse library that will be perfect for you. So, you know, once these profiles are set, as long as we're doing our proper maintenance and, you know, keeping our conditions as consistent as possible, we will be able to hit those results every time. So the more profiles we build, the more we build up our library, and the less that we're going to have to worry about sitting there and profiling the media each time it comes through our door. Let's talk a little bit about ink restrictions. So this is one of the keys when it comes to setting up a proper profile. Now, Onyx kind of takes it a step further, I'd say. They have what they call I'm going to call it the easy mode. It's really an automated mode now. So when you read those calibration swatches, it will kind of decide and realize how to handle those ink restrictions. Of course, we can go into the older modes, and if we really want to dive deep, we can do a manual adjustment to that. Now, this will be a swatch that you can print out that you're able to actually look at physically, and you'll determine yourself where you believe that restriction should be. Again, Onyx, for the most, I'd probably say 90% of users, it does a pretty darn good job of just handling that for us off the bat. What they call is print, read, next. So just what it sounds like. You print it, you read it with your spectrophotometer, and you move on to the next step. So, and last but not least, I kind of mentioned down here, you know, it's going to be your max ink for a single channel. If you guys are familiar with the variable dot technology kind of that Epson uses, it's going to really help us dial that down perfectly. At the very end, it's going to increase and give us a better output. So can't argue with that. And what I just kind of throw down here at the bottom right, this is just a good chart if you kind of want to make some just adjustments and kind of see. You can see we've got deep blacks, we've got black and whites, portraits, things of that nature too. And those are all built into Onyx. Let's talk about linearization as well. And this is going to be how that ink is going to actually be applied to the media that you're adding it to. So really the biggest thing here is to control spread. You know, the way these dots are laid down, we're taking these four and we're creating colors based off of these individual dots. So you can imagine, you know, if they start to merge into each other, they can cause issues. You can start to get block things up. If they're too separated, we're not going to get the color accuracy that we need. And what I put in here is kind of more ink does not equal darker. I know sometimes people are like, well, get saturated, let's get it. And there is a point where really we don't need to go any further. I think at that point, it's just a waste, to be truly honest with you. Now, different media, obviously, like I said before, we will need to profile this accordingly. Every different set of media and every different pass on that media will need a profile for it. So I'd say probably an average for a lot of sign shops, they might come up with maybe a couple passes, or maybe they'll just stick with a 4, 6, or 8 and kind of have that be their general across the board there. Ink limiting. So very similar, I suppose, to the ink restriction there. This has we have a little bit more control over this one, though. This is going to be the amount that's absorbed. So we don't want to oversaturate at the end of the day, like you see here. We can bring those limits down, and we don't need to add more. And again, this is going to equate to cost savings and more accuracy long term as well. And I'll show you guys how that process works here in a minute, but that'll be a visual representation that we can kind of make the adjustments on ourselves. course, at the end of the day, when all this is said and done, all of that data is analyzed. They encompass it into one massive profile, and that profile will be what we select each time we're using this media. One cool thing I want to mention too, since we are talking about consistency and repeatable efforts here, is Onyx Color Check. It's actually a really cool thing. So what it does is it establishes a baseline. So I have mine set to a weekly. So every week I can actually go in here, run, and hopefully you can see down here, I'll actually blow this up, our expected versus measured colors. And this is a good way to see if anything major has changed within maybe that week to week, or you can set this as needed. And you can see here, I got a verification status of a pass. So you can see our delta E, and for those of you who haven't heard of delta E, it's basically the noticeable differences between a color there. You can see are well within my tolerance levels. So even though there might have been a slight change in the office, who knows, maybe there was a rainy day or something like that, I'm still well within my limits to hit those colors every time. So this is a good way to check and make sure that everything is calibrated and working properly as when we first established that profile. I am going to jump back to the Epson Edge dashboard as well. Now, the reason I want to bring this up is because for some people, it might be worth it for them to start with a baseline. With these profiles imported into Onyx, we can actually go in and we can edit these. So if you wanted to take an existing profile and maybe tweak it to your preferred settings, that's absolutely doable as well. We'll talk a little bit about rendering intent here, but I do want to let you guys know that once we have it profiled, our real last step there is making sure that the way that we output that file is set properly. I would say for a majority of people, perceptual is going to be kind of the mainstay there. Again, just a little bit of a larger view here. And what I want to show you here is, and I know we kind of talked about this briefly in a past webinar, but I want to reiterate here that there are a ton of profiles built in, but that doesn't mean that they're perfect. And you can see some of these last updated 2018, which, I mean, for a lot of folks, they're more than happy with this, but I can tell you for a fact, I took an already great 1105 profile, made my own custom profile, put those side by side, and not to be biased, but I definitely pick mine every time. So let's jump over to one more thing I want to mention on the Onyx software. So when it comes to Onyx, a lot of these printers, until you're jumping into like the S80 print and cut, are going to come with what they call Gamma Print. Now, unfortunately, Gamma Print is not really a profiling software. So we are going to need to upgrade if we want to allow Onyx to be able to read directly with our spectrophotometer. That being said, there's plenty of people out there that will go the I1 profiler route, which is XRite software, to create those profiles and import those in as well. So multiple ways to skin a cat, but I want to reiterate how easy that it is for Onyx. You'll see here with the wizard in action, but it's a very convenient, easy tool that gives you very accurate results. And last but not least, I think a lot of people, hopefully in this world, it does come down to return on investment, right? So not only is this going to give us accurate colors, which is going to, introduce fewer returns, more satisfied customers, but we're going to limit the ink that we're putting down. That's going to save us some money. We're going to keep that consistency going, so we're not having to do reruns or retrials. Again, at the very end of the day, fewer headaches, you go home happier, you have a bigger return on investment, everybody kind of wins here. So it's a little bit more than just getting nice, pretty, accurate colors. It really is a very business-centric tool. And last but not least, that's enough of me talking. I actually want to kind of show you guys the color management process in action. Now, this is obviously an abbreviated, kind of a quick process, but I think it should hopefully make sense for everybody here. So let's get that going. All right, so here you see we are in the Media Manager. We're going to create our MPI1105 custom media today. With our basics profile set, we're working with a CMYK ink set. There's no reason for us. We're going to let it know it's adhesive vinyl, even though we already had told that earlier. If you're working with banner material, something like that, it might make a difference. You can see here we can add multiple passes and modes. So I have a 6-pass, but if I wanted to add an 8-pass, maybe even a 12-pass or something like that, I can always put that under the same umbrella. We're going to label it. We're going to set our mode. Now, this is important. Again, like I said, each mode is going to have a different profile. So with this mode set, you'll see I'm working with a 6-pass high quality setting. Print mode bidirectional, a few of the kind of basics we can adjust there. And then we'll continue on. So here's kind of where the print read next comes into play. So you can see we're using our XRite, already established as our device. I let it know the media that's currently in there, the size of it. You can see we can adjust our patches. I think this is a pretty darn good start though. So what you can see is it's going to drop into our queue. From the queue, we're going to print that out on the printer. And then what you'll see is from here, we're actually going to read that. So here's just kind of a few things I'm working with, my spectrophotometer. Now, what this is going to do is read the expected values versus the measured values. And it's actually going to correct accordingly for those. So you can see here, I have mine set to strips. You can do individual swatches, but you know, that's 4,000 swatches that might start to get a little time consuming there. So you can see, I'm gonna do the exact same thing for my ink limiting as well. And hopefully you guys can see how simple this really is. Everything is kind of it's a full wizard setup where you hit what's needed, you go next, rinse and repeat. So you can see my print here, check for a few things. Hopefully you can see there that there was a point where those blacks are just black. There's really nothing beyond that we need to hit. So from here, we're going to go ahead and say, okay, I've got my calibration, my restrictions, my limits are all set. Let's go ahead and print out my swatches. Now, when you see when I click on this, it gives us an option. Now, I went with the ultra accuracy. That's actually the recommended setting from Onyx. You can see 2,300 patches there. It's going to give you the most accurate results. You can see standard of 994 or even the 552. You can imagine there's quite a few colors we're missing out on. So if you can, I definitely strongly encourage, I say the more is better, and the more is going to be more accurate for you as well. So you can see I've got all my swatches out. Now this is printed on a 54-inch roll. So what I need to do is cut all of these down to make sure that they fit properly on my board here. That way I can just take that spectrophotometer, read them left to right, and just be done with it. So hopefully you can see there's actually a couple ways you can set these up. I strongly recommend not having light colors next to each other, as when you're reading across the board, that can cause some minor issues there. Whereas this one, different colors, so everything is going to be, in my opinion, a little more accurate there. And it's recommended from Onyx as well. So hopefully you can see here the expected versus the measured color. You can see the LAB values, and we can dive into that stuff a little bit later. More luminance values versus some color values there. But what I really want to kind of drive home is the fact that it's recognizing the colors that are printing out and going to adjust that for the colors that we want. So I know it's kind of hard to tell here on the camera, but really what that was, and actually let me go back just briefly there. So we ran 3 different tests, and like I said, I know it's hard to see here, but we've got one up here, which was kind of the initial baseline. I know the tones changed. We got a little bit of color accuracy. And at the very end, with our final setup, I think we got something pretty darn accurate there. And I want to show you guys just some of the beautiful photos here. And this is from our one of our residents here, Jim Davis, who is a fantastic photographer. And he was gracious enough to let me use some of his prints for some testing there today. So. Anyway, guys, I think that was a really, really quick kind of rundown on everything. I know I threw a decent amount out there, but that's kind of what I want to open up for questions now. So if there's anything that you guys want to dive deeper into, let us know, and we'll answer those here real time.
And just to kind of jump in, I mean, one thing, if y'all have any initial questions here, our facility is open, our demo room is open. So if this is a interest in you in looking at solvent printers or cutters or whatever it might be, just call us and we can schedule an appointment to go over, discuss your business goals and see what it applies to these printers, and definitely help you get you on the right track. And so we've got all safety guidelines in place and all that stuff, here, and perfectly safe. So we've been doing some demos here and there, so our office is open.
Absolutely. And thanks for saying that, Matt. And I will reiterate as well, we're more than happy if you want to come in. Like Matt said, we have all the precautions set in place. But same thing, if you ever want to FaceTime, or if you just kind of want to have a digital overview as well, we're more than happy to run those. We can, run a test print if needed. And for those of you who kind of are maybe coming from not the solvent background, maybe a P series, or maybe even some dye sublimation, solvent is an amazing, it really is an amazing tool. And I'll tell you, even with these S80s, we can hit full on fine art recreation. We're talking 98.6% Pantone match. So I think sometimes people will just kind of say, oh, signage, kind of that's the thing. But man, there's so much more to it. Canvas, poster production, backlit displays, POP. I mean, I could go on, but I just want to let you guys know they're very versatile.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this just does not just apply to solvent machines. It's also to P series photographic machines, sublimation machines as well. You get into that sublimation, and there are some moments that are critical to get color right, and that does involve some of these tactics. But yeah, any kind of device you have in there doesn't have to be solvent. If you got some color management questions, definitely call us. We can try to help you guide you through it.
Absolutely. And one thing, if you guys are new kind of to the spectrophotometer, there's a lot that this can do. So you can actually use the same device to calibrate your monitor as well as your media profiles. Some people will even use these to profile their cameras and things of that nature as well. So there is a lot of versatility to them. And I'll tell you, it's something that at this point, I think any major sign shop couldn't really live without. So I would recommend anyone looking into it. It's called the XRite is the company, and the particular one we were using was the I1 Pro 2. So really everything kind of calibrated together is just one less headache that we have to deal with. If our monitors are calibrated, our lights are all taken care of properly, then we're going to be in a good spot.
Hey, Zach, this is Morgan.
Hey, Morgan.
So when they're looking for the XRite, do you guys sell the XRites? I mean, there's profiles made, and for the most part, those are pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
But if someone does want to make their own profiles, do you sell that XRite product?
Yeah, we do, Morgan. Yeah, we
Awesome.
do. We are XRite dealer and do sell their products, and so if that is something you want to add to your arsenal over there as far as print shop or sign shop or something that you think you definitely do need, just call us and we can kind of go over the different options that XRite has to offer on their color management supplies, be able to get you a good deal on one.
Cool, thanks.
Well, guys, I hope this was a little bit informative today. I know we're kind of we're diving into some more of the science side of the world, but I really feel like for those of you who haven't been introduced to it, I want to at least get some of those concepts out there because I really will tell you, it truly will take it to kind of the next step. And Morgan's right. Some of those profiles that are built into the Epson Edge are fantastic, and I've got nothing against those, but this is kind of us taking it one step further, if you will.
No, definitely. And, from the Epson side, we see a lot of customers that want to customize certain things. And you have end users that, there's a specific color that their customer has to have that's very unique to them. And it seems like this tool is how to get there.
Absolutely. No, very much agree with that one. Well, guys, is there any kind of questions? Like Matt said too, and we love talking one-on-one. So if there's something that you want to deal with offline, you can definitely call in. We've got all of our information up here on screen, so definitely feel free to call, email, and we'll get something going for you guys.
Hey, sorry, everybody, I was on a different call, so I'm here if you need me.
Thanks, Mike. Hey, I think I'm gonna say we did a darn good job. I'm not getting any major questions, so I'll take that as a good sign.
Yeah, I've been listening in, but just
hey, no worries.
With 2 ears.
Hey, I appreciate you being here today. So thank you very much.
Mike's only emergency break class level.
All right, guys. Well, I think that's I'm not seeing anything coming through, so let's go ahead and we'll close it down. And I want to say thanks for everyone for attending as usual. Definitely check us out on imagingspectrum.com/training. And then, of course, any more questions, call us in. We can talk one-on-one.
All right. Do appreciate the attending. And like I said, if there's any, offline questions, just feel free to call us at 214-342-9290. And we'll be happy to answer your questions and set up anything that you need there.
All right, guys. Have a good one.
Okay. Thanks, Zach.
Have a good day, everybody.
Thank you, sir.